everyone, welcome back to Ya, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting, history, and the values behind your pocket change. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. Now today we've got an interesting topic for all you coin enthusiasts out there. We're talking about the 1983 US quarter dollar. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, the 1983 quarter might be a coin you've come across, and you're probably wondering, what's it worth in circulated condition? Well, stay tuned as we break it down in detail. First, let's take a quick look at the quarter itself. The 1983 quarter is part of the Washington Quarter series, which has been in circulation since 1932. As you can see, the obverse, or front, features George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, and on the reverse, you'll find a bald eagle, designed by John Sinek. This design has remained largely unchanged for decades, though we've seen some variations over the years with special releases. So, let's get to the main question. What's a 1983 quarter worth in circulated condition? Well, if you're holding a regular 1983 quarter from Genera, generally close to its face value, 25 cents. That's right. In most cases, unless it's in pristine condition or has some special characteristics, you're probably looking at a quarter that's worth just 25 cents. But let's take a closer look at why it might still be worth checking the details before you toss it back into your change jar. One of the first things you'll want to check on any US coin is the mint mark, L mark, because it's the first thing you'll want to check on any US coin is the mint mark, and this tells you where the coin was produced. For the 1983 quarter, there are 3 potential mint marks. The mint mark can be found just beneath Washington's neck on the obverse side of the coin. Now, while the mint mark doesn't typically change the value of a circulated 1983 quarter, it can be a point of interest for collectors. The Philadelphia Mint is where most of the 1983 quarters were made, so they're the most common. But the Denver and San Francisco minted coins are a little rarer. Now let's talk about something a little more exciting. Are there any 1983 quarters that might be worth more than 25 cents? Absolutely. A 1983 quarter in uncirculated condition, or one that has special characteristics, could be worth significantly more. First, let's talk about condition. Coins that are well preserved and have little to no wear and tear are considered uncirculated. These coins, fresh from the mint, can command a higher price among collectors. So if you have a 1983 quarter that looks like it just came off the press, it could be worth anywhere from 50 cents to a couple of dollars, depending on its exact condition. Next up, special varieties. While the 1983 quarter isn't known for any major minting errors like doubling or misshapes, there are always small variations that might catch a collector's eye. For example, some 1983 quarters might have die cracks struck through grease or other minor imperfections that make them stand out. These coins could be worth a bit more than a regular 1983 quarter, especially if they're well-known varieties that collectors are actively seeking. Here's a quick rundown of the estimated values for a 1983 quarter based on its condition. But there's one more thing to consider: the silver content. This might not apply directly to the 1983 quarter, but it's a good thing to keep in mind when you're collecting older quarters in general. In collections, quarters struck before 1965 contain 90% silver, which quarters like the 1983 quarter. However, since the 1983 quarter is made of a clad composition, which means a copper core with a nickel coating, its melt value is pretty low, and the silver content is 0. So, unless you're dealing with an error coin or a very high-quality piece, it won't have the same precious metal value as those older quarters, okay? So now that we've covered the basics of the 1983 quarter, it's time for a quick recap. If you find a 1983 quarter in your pocket change, it's probably worth the 25 cents it shows on the face. But if it's in excellent condition, or if it has some unique feature, it could be worth a little extra to collectors. As always, it's important to carefully examine your coins for any potential varieties or errors that could make it stand out. The Washington Quarter is part of one of the longest-running coin series in U.S. history, first minted in 1932, to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The series has had various design changes over the years, but the Washington Quarter's distinctive design has remained remarkably consistent since its introduction. The 1983 U.S. quarter dollar is part of the post-1976 era when the U.S. Mint switched from the previous 40% silver composition to a more economical copper-nickel-clad composition for most circulating coins. This change was made to address the rising cost of silver, which had made it uneconomical to produce coins with significant silver content. In 1965, the U.S. government began producing quarters with a copper-nickel-clad composition, which is still used today. This was a major shift from the earlier quarters made of 90% silver. By the time the 1983 quarter was minted, all quarters were produced with this new composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The 1983 quarter didn't have any significant changes in design or composition, but there were several important events in U.S. coinage leading up to its production. The 1976 quarter featured a special reverse design to mark the 200th anniversary of the U.S. independence. This was the only year in the 20th century where the reverse design of the quarter was changed. After 1976, the regular Washington quarter design was restored, and the design would remain in place for decades. Including the 1983 quarter in 1965, the U.S. government passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which ended the use of silver in most circulating coins, including the quarter. Instead, the whole coins after 1964 was produced using this copper-nickel-clad material. In 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a new, more efficient method of production known as sintering. This technique was used to create a more durable and uniform coinage, which helped reduce production costs. This process didn't directly affect the 1983 quarter's design, but it helped improve the overall quality and consistency of U.S. coins during that period. The year 1983 was a transitional period for the U.S. economy and the minting process. The country was dealing with economic recovery after the 1970s recession, which had included periods of high inflation, oil shortages, and economic stagnation. The shift away from silver to a base metal composition for coins was one of many cost-saving measures undertaken by the U.S. Mint. The early 1980s saw the end of the high inflation era of the 1970s, with the U.S. experiencing economic recovery in the Reagan era. The Mint was producing coins at an accelerated rate to meet the needs of a growing population and economy. The 1983 quarter was among the over 1.7 billion quarters struck that year to meet these demands. The San Francisco Mint produced proof quarters in 1983, which are special, polished versions of coins, not circulation. By 1983, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned to clad coins, and the 1983 quarter was a typical example of this new format. Here's a breakdown of key characteristics. The 1983 quarter had no silver content, unlike the older pre-1965 quarters. The 1983 quarter saw significant circulation, as the U.S. Mint had been ramping up coin production after the 1970s. The 1983 quarter was among the millions of quarters that filled wallets, vending machines, and coffers across the nation. During this time, the U.S. Mint was focusing on ensuring that there was a steady supply of currency to match the increasing demands of an expanding economy. In this table, we see how the Mint used various measures to control crime. This could mean various things, such as improving communications with its citizens, saving crime victims, or preventing past failures of the currency. For collectors, the 1983 quarter is not particularly rare, and its value in circulated condition remains very close to its face value, 25 cents. However, there are a few nuances that make certain 1983 quarters more collectible. The vast majority of 1983 quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, meaning they don't have a mint mark. The Denver and San Francisco mints produced far fewer quarters, so these can be more sought after by collectors. While the 1983 quarter may not have the same iconic status as older quarters like those from the pre-1965 silver era, it represents a key moment and it continues to be collected by numismatists, especially those interested in post-1964 coinage. While the 1983 U.S. quarter dollar might not be a rare or particularly valuable coin in its standard circulated form, it serves as an important part of U.S. coin history. The shift to copper-nickel-clad coins marked a significant chapter in the evolution of U.S. coinage, and the 1983 quarter serves as a reminder of the country's changing economic and minting practices during that time. Whether you're just starting your collection or you're a seasoned numismatist, the 1983 quarter is a piece of history worth knowing about. Let me know if you'd like any additional details or specific areas explored further. Thanks for tuning in to today's deep dive on the 1983 U.S. quarter. I hope you found this information useful. If you've got any 1983 quarters lying around, now you know what to look for and whether they might be worth a little more than their face value. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to your channel name for more coin collecting tips, tricks, and news. Leave a comment below if you've ever found a rare 1983 quarter, or if you have any questions about other coins in your collection. And if you have any questions about other coins in your collection,